So most people think when they're doing a standing forward fold that they're stretching the muscles of the back of their legs, the hamstrings, and to a certain degree the backside muscles and the lower back. Personally, based on my understanding of the human body, physiology, and our relationship with gravity in that position, I really don't think that's the case. We don't stretch what we think we're stretching. And that's really important because it shifts our perspective. We tend to think that every yoga pose should be a stretch, and yoga is so much more than stretching. So it does kind of take us away from this modern idea of stretching is better, and it humbles us and brings us back to the basics of yoga. Those who come to my class would have heard me say this all the time. When you are standing in your forward bend, I always instruct students to use their feet rather than stand on their feet. So I stretch my toes out, I shift my weight forward, backwards, and I really want to feel like all the intricate muscles in my feet are working and engaging with my brain. So I'm continuing that loop, that sensory motor loop where the feet send sensory information to the brain via the spinal cord, and then the brain sends a motor, think M motor movement, a motor response back to the toes and the intricate foot muscles telling them what to do and how to engage correctly to maintain our balance. So I guess where I'm headed is that I treat forward fold as an exercise for my feet and my toes rather than a stretch for the back of the legs. Some experts on the feet and toes to a degree, they argue quite successfully that weak toes or our inability to use our toes in the correct way is an early indicator of us falling later on in life. So it's really important that we still have use of our toes, and at the age of 46, I really need to start now so I don't lose that kind of independent toe strength later on in life. So the importance of your feet in forward bend is so important, yet very often overlooked, and the focus is on something else, which I'm arguing doesn't really happen. You don't stretch your legs in the way that you think you're stretching, and I argue to some point that we don't stretch them at all. I'm going to use my block because it's very cold in here. All I'm doing in my forward bend is I'm shifting my weight forward, backwards, and I'm really using my toes. And I want to place my hands in contact with something. And that's because of my relationship with gravity. If I don't have my hands in contact with something, and I know I've been through this before in separate videos, if I decide to dangle or hang, there's every possibility for the average practitioner that comes to the studio, and I'm not talking again about seasoned practitioners like my wife Laura. She is so advanced in her practice and in her body that this doesn't apply to her. But for the average Joe like myself and most of the students who come to the studio, I believe your hands should be in contact with something the entire time, because what that does is that changes the body's relationship with gravity. And then rather than your muscles resisting against gravity, they're more likely to release and relax each time you exhale. So if you are stretching anything, it's only going to be possible on a nasal exhale, and if your hands are in contact with something, providing support, a support structure for your body. If there's no support structure for your body, the brain thinks you might fall over, so it engages muscles to prevent that from happening. But you're agonizingly trying to stretch, so you're kind of contradicting your own physiology. So again, getting back to the forward bend, all I'm doing really is going to spend 60 seconds here, 90 seconds here. I actually spend longer when I practice. I tend to do this for 3 or 4 minutes. When I do yin, I tend to hold it for 3.5 minutes. It's because for most people, again, the average yoga practitioner who hasn't completed yoga, their body does resist more than they realize. So it takes a couple of minutes of nasal breathing, of slowing your heart rate down until the body starts to relax. And only then is there a potential to stretch and to release something. So, but I'm not concentrating on stretching. If it happens as a consequence of what I'm doing, then great, but that's not what I'm looking for. All I'm doing is working my toes, and I shift my weight forward when my heels almost start to come off. I shift backwards, and I'm thinking about making space between all 5 toes, and I'm really focused on that poor, suffering, small little toe that is often neglected, and it gets all crushed and smashed up inside our shoes. I really want to stretch it out and make good contact with the ground. When I step away from the mat, if the mat had an imprint of my feet, I would see a perfect wet footprint. I would see all 5 toes in contact with my mat. So once again, this is not me saying that your forward bend is wrong and how I do it is right. I just want to offer you a different perspective, one that is driven by science and my own anecdotal experience. To summarize, next time you're in your standing forward bend, shift your perspective. Don't think you're here to stretch anything. All you're here to do is work on your feet and then just breathe in and out of your nose. And if something happens, if your lower back releases, mine does on occasion, if I really get my heart rate down, if I breathe slower and slower, I hear a pop when my lower back just releases. On exhale, gravity stretches my body for me and it feels amazing. But I wasn't looking for that. I'm just working on my toes and I'm working on my breathing, and the magic just happens by itself. Oh, foot position. Whether you have your feet closer together or wide apart is really up to you. The narrower your feet are, the more out of balance your brain feels, so the more muscles have to work to keep you upright. The wider your feet are, the more stable your base is, the less certain muscles need to engage to keep us upright. So you could argue that a wider foot position is perhaps better if you're relatively new. And then over time, if you want to challenge your brain a little bit more, you can bring your feet slightly closer together. There is no right and wrong. It always comes down to the person's intention and what they're trying to do. If you want to make it easier, if you need to make it easier for your body, you take your feet wider. It's really straightforward.